Please welcome Scott Guthrie, Corporate Vice President, Windows Azure.
Cool. Well, good afternoon. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to chat about Windows Azure here today. We launched Windows Azure 2 years ago, and since that time, we've enhanced it regularly with a bunch of great updates and feature enhancements. Today, we're announcing, though, the most significant release of Windows Azure yet. It elevates Azure to a new level, opens it up to even more developers to use, and it's designed to power the next generation of applications. Today's release of Windows Azure, we're more flexible than ever. Windows Azure helped pioneer the concept of platform as a service and provides a rich set of managed, scalable services that you can use to build applications. And today, we're making those services even richer. Today, we're also enabling infrastructure as a service, including the ability to host and deploy durable virtual machines in the cloud, running both Windows and Linux. Now, some of you might be surprised to hear the word Linux at a Microsoft event. Our support of Linux, though, is just one example of how we are embracing openness in a fundamental new way. With today's release, we're supporting more operating systems, more languages, more open protocols, and we're releasing all of the Azure SDKs on GitHub under an open source license. The end result, we think, is a truly unique offering, and we're really excited to talk about it today. You can now use both platform as a service and infrastructure as a service together. You can now use the best of both the Microsoft ecosystem and the best of the open source ecosystem together. And you can build better and more scalable solutions than ever before. Windows Azure runs in data centers around the world, enabling you to deploy and run applications and infrastructure closer to your customers. Windows Azure services are backed by a monthly SLA, giving you the confidence to deliver applications and solutions to your customers. And with Windows Azure, you pay only for what you use, enabling you to avoid upfront costs and scale as your business grows. And as I mentioned a couple times now, we're really excited about being able to kind of introduce you to the new Windows Azure today. And enough slides, let's actually dive into some demos. So, let's switch here and show off here the new Windows Azure website, which you can see up here. This is live today, so you can actually visit it at any point. You can check it out, see our new features and capabilities, and learn more about what the product provides. For developers, we have a pretty rich set of dev centers that we've launched today. We offer dev centers in multiple different languages. So if you're a .NET developer, you can go learn more, read tutorials, see code, install the SDKs for the tools that you use. If you're a Node developer, you can do the same thing. All the tutorials are in Node and JavaScript. And we have a Windows, Mac, and now a Linux installer that you can download in order to do the development on whatever operating system you want. And all of the SDKs are released under an open source Apache 2 license on GitHub. And so you can not only see the code, we also support pull requests if you want to go ahead and send modifications back as well. Integrated into the website, we also have pricing information, so you can learn more about what the different features cost. You can also sign up for our free trial, and we provide a 90-day free trial with no obligations or no upfront costs. You can try out all the different features and sign up in a really easy way. Now, I'm already signed in, so I can actually just flip to our portal tab once you have an account. This is a new tab that we've released today that basically provides a unified view for all of the services and applications that you can run on Windows Azure. We spent a lot of time optimizing it so it works in any browser, on any platform. And it, again, has a bunch of kind of consistency and coherency across the overall feature set so that as you learn different features, it's really easy to learn a new one and figure out how to make them work together. So for example, I can create a website. We'll see this a little bit later. I can create a virtual machine. See it a little bit later. Create a cloud service. We'll see that a little later. And we're using kind of common metaphors and common gestures for everything. You can drill into different services just by clicking on them. We bring up, for example, this is a virtual machine that we'll see a little bit later. You can basically see full monitoring statistics surface through the portal. And you can see cores, all your overall information. You can manage storage and things like that as well. So a nice integrated, unified view. Again, you're going to see across all the different demos today, a lot of coherency kind of built into that overall experience. And everything you do through the portal It calls through REST APIs on the back end. And so if you're a command line person, you're going to see some good command line demos a little bit later on here today as well. We have full command line support for everything that we surface as well. So let's go ahead and actually, I mentioned infrastructure as a service. Why don't we get started and show off a quick demo of that in action. So what I'm going to do here is just create a new virtual machine. We'll call it, I don't know what we call it, Meet NSF. Pick my size of machine I want. I can pick any variety of different data centers I want to deploy to. Go ahead and hit create. This is going to go ahead now and basically set up a new virtual machine that I can go ahead then and configure however I want. Any of the machines that you run, again, once you drill into them and once they're deployed, you get full statistics and information about them. You can also go ahead and connect to them. If it's a Windows machine, I can go ahead and, if I remember the password, I can remote desktop in, and I'm the full admin on the box. This is just standard virtual machines. I can install anything I want within them. I can install SQL if I'm a Windows guy, SharePoint, any of the standard Microsoft products. Anything I install in this virtual machine will persist if I ever reboot that machine. So it's a full durable virtual machine. I can also go ahead and once I configure software on a machine, I can click this capture button and create my own image that I can then use to create other VMs at a future point. In addition to obviously Windows, we also support Linux. And so we switched to the other machine here. Let's walk through actually similar experience now using a Mac. So I'm going to go ahead, hit virtual machine. Rather than quick create, I'm going to show off our new gallery. So this provides a set of images that you can use, both from us as well as from our partners. We have a number of Linux distributions included, built into the portal. So for example, I could do CentOS, I could do SUSE. In this case here, I'm going to do Ubuntu. And we'll say, pick the size I want. I can optionally upload an SSH key to include as part of the VM, or I can set that up later. Pick the region I want to deploy it into, and hit go. This is basically stand up for me now a Ubuntu-based virtual machine. And once it's ready, I can SSH in, and I can do anything I want with it. So basically full support directly in the portal for creating any number of virtual machines using images we provide. Again, just like I could on the Windows machine, I can configure this Linux-based VM, capture it as a reusable image, and then basically create any new number of VMs based on that and have everything pre-installed when I go ahead and create it. So really powerful, really flexible way to do it. I've done everything so far in the portal. As I mentioned earlier, all of our management APIs are exposed through REST from Azure, which allows you to program against them in any number of languages. We also have a number of SDKs that you can download that provide built-in, pre-built command line tools that you can use to manage your systems. And so we have, for example, on a Mac, we have basically a Mac installer that you can install. Once you do that, it installs for you an Azure utility and wires up your bash shell. And so you can go ahead and just type Azure to see some of the commands that we support. We've included a nice ASCII splash screen as part of it. And it basically just allows you to really easily go ahead and manage your system as well as to monitor it, again, in a fully automated way. And you'll notice here we have a nice --JSON flag that you can set to the command line. So if you want to return back the data as text or as fully as JSON payloads, you can do that as well to make it even easier to script and automate. So for example, I could say Azure VM list. This is going to go ahead against Windows Azure, query to see what virtual machines are running under my subscription. I can basically see the status. You can see my VMs are starting up right now. I can then just go ahead and let's SSH in. I'm now SSH'd into this particular Linux VM. I can run top on it to see what is going on in the system. And I basically have full access and control to the overall system. So basically full environment, full flexibility, gives me lots of power and capabilities. So lots of things you can do here. And between the combination of both Windows and Linux-based VMs and the ability for you to actually provide your own VM and upload it with whatever operating system you want, we think, again, provides the ability to run pretty much any workload on Windows Azure. And you'll see a little bit later, the beauty is you can integrate these different workloads together so you can have a combination of both VMs as well as platform as a service-based features, all coordinating within a single solution. One of the things that we've also kind of focused on is not with infrastructure as a service is not just the ability to upload VMs into the cloud and run them, but also to integrate those solutions with existing systems and existing networks that you might already have in your own data centers or in other solution providers. And as part of today's release, we're shipping new virtual private networking capability that makes it really easy for you to set up a private network between any endpoint and your systems running within Azure and give you full control over it. Again, creating a new one is pretty simple. I can just go ahead and say create network. I could name it, so we could say meet in SFnet. And what I basically do here is there's a nice wizard. I can specify an address space I want to use for my private network and all the VMs that are running inside Azure. I can specify any address space I want. We'll actually virtualize that address space. So if two tenants try to use the same address space, they only see their machines. You can specify subnets. You can provide DNS servers either within Azure or running within your own private network. I'm not going to make you watch me type in a bunch of subnet addresses. Instead, though, I'm going to show you one that we've already created that looks like right here. And basically, you can see here I have a Meet Azure VNet set up. So these are what a couple of VMs running within Azure are using. I'm connecting over a VPN to an on-premise solution called WAMLAN. And I have a DNS server behind that firewall that my servers also have access to within Azure. And I basically, you can see, get real-time input as to data in, data out across that pipe. What's nice about our virtual private networking solution is that you can integrate it with pretty much any back-end network provider. So we don't require you to install any custom software on your existing enterprise network or existing other data center. Instead, we've kind of integrated with existing VPN hardware and software solutions and made interop work really well with Azure. And so if I was an IT professional after the developer set this up and I wanted to connect my existing network to Azure, all I need to do in the portal is hit the download button. You can specify what vendor VPN solution is running on your existing data center, specify which router that they have, and then hit OK. And then we'll actually generate for you a command line script that you can go ahead and run that's specific to whatever router you're running locally as your VPN solution. Your admin can look at it, run the script, and then basically you have a joined private network connecting your on-premise and your cloud environments. So it makes it really easy, really powerful for you to go connect the two and deliver a hybrid cloud environment that spans across both of them. As I showed there, you can use Windows Linux. It's very flexible. You can install any kind of software you want within it. And you can set up a virtual private network across the two. There's a couple other nice kind of characteristics about our virtual machine story, though, that I want to talk a little bit about. One is the ability to have what we call virtual machine portability between the cloud and multiple different environments. All the virtual machines within Windows Azure are running using what we call a VHD file format, which is an open spec that we've shipped and which we use in a variety of different other products at Microsoft, including Windows Server virtualization. The benefit with that is because we're running the same file format, it's really easy for you to take a VM, whether it's started off in your own data center, and upgrade it into Azure. You don't have to run an import-export process. You simply upload it and then just enable it within Azure and it works. There's no conversion tools. There's no agent you need to install in the VM. It just works. You can also take, for example, either the Windows or the Linux VM that I created inside Azure, and we make it really easy for you to download that VHD locally, and you can then boot it up on a local server in whatever environment you want. Again, you don't have to export it. It's not like a one-way street. It's really easy just to literally inside the portal, click to download that VHD, take it down locally, boot it up, and away you go. The other thing that this offers is the ability for you to run not only in Windows Azure as a data center, but in other service providers as well. And so you also then can take VMs from any of these locations, move it into another data center, and the end result gives you a lot of flexibility, a lot of portability, and ensures that you have no lock-in as you're using kind of this environment. And so we hopefully think the end result ends up being a win for everyone. Other unique thing that we're doing with Windows Azure today, as part of our infrastructure as a service release, is making it possible for you to mount durable drives to your virtual machines. And we're trying to do it in a way that's really reliable, it's very consistent in terms of perf, and ends up giving you a great story to run solutions. One of the things that's different in terms of how we've enabled it is we're basically allowing you, when you mount a drive inside the portal or through the command line to attach a disk, is we're backing that disk with the existing Windows Azure storage system that we run in the cloud today. There's a couple of nice characteristics about the storage system. One is that we triple replicate the content within the data center. And what that means is if a disk ever goes bad that your data is on, we have 2 other copies of the data that we can work with, and we have no interruption of service to that. We'll spin up a new replica once we detect a disk is bad. And from your VM's perspective, you never know an issue actually occurred. So you get much more reliability, and you have kind of an always-on experience as you're delivering that solution. The other thing that's nice about the Windows Azure storage solution is that we have a cool feature that we call continuous storage georeplication. It rolls off the tongue. And what it basically means, though, it's a pretty cool feature. Basically means that when you save anything into our storage system, we can automatically in the background replicate it to another data center. And we guarantee these data centers are several hundreds of miles apart, so that in the event of a natural disaster or a complete data center loss, you know that another copy of your data exists somewhere else. You don't have to set anything up to enable it. We basically just do this in the background automatically. You can turn it off if for privacy reasons or for whatever policy reasons you don't want to do this. But it's a nice built-in feature that you can take advantage of that allows you to deliver much more robust solutions with even greater integrity. So there's a lot of built-in features we quickly demo. There's a lot more you'll see in the hands-on and if you visit the website and actually check out the Manage section. One of the things that's also really cool about today's announcement is the great partners that we have building on top of the virtual machine solution that we're rolling out today. I've shown a few of them already as part of the online gallery for picking VMs. Ubuntu, OpenLogic, who's delivering our CentOS distribution, as well as SUSE. We also have great management software being offered by partners. We're excited to announce RightScale, OpsCode with their Chef solution, and Scale Extreme. We also have great monitoring and management software with New Relic and AppDynamics that are all launching solutions this week on top of Windows Azure. And we think the combination of both the built-in functionality as well as the rich ecosystem around it really gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of how you use the solution and gives you a lot of choice and options in terms of how you deploy it. What I want to do now is invite Michael Crandell on stage from RightScale to talk a little bit about the partnership that we have, some of the great solutions that RightScale offers, and some of why he's excited about Windows Azure. Thanks,
Thank you, Scott. Thanks very much. Very cool stuff, don't you think? We've been waiting for this for a long time. So for those of you for whom RightScale is a little bit new, a little bit of background, from the very beginning, RightScale's mission, and this stems back 5 years ago, has been to build a broad cloud management platform. We've created a web environment, web-based environment, that allows companies, really all departments across the company, to manage everything from development to delivery of applications running on cloud infrastructures. So what does that mean? Well, a good way to look at it is to think of us as kind of a bridge between apps and the cloud infrastructures you want to run those on, whether they be public clouds, private clouds, or hybrid clouds. And we support a number of clouds in all those categories. So naturally, when we learned a while ago that Azure was going to be coming out with infrastructure as a service, we were really excited. So how do we partner with Azure? Well, we started working with the Azure team very closely in order to integrate RightScale with the new IaaS APIs that they've developed. And I think even made a few suggestions along the way, which I hope have been constructive. And the result is that now on Azure, we've brought to Azure the full set of RightScale capabilities, ranging from auto-scaling to monitoring and alerting, through to user management and governance and so on. And then finally, dynamic configuration of servers as they launch to tie all of that together. We support both Windows workloads and Linux workloads on Azure running out of our multi-cloud marketplace. So how does it work? Let's just take an example. Let's say you'd like to run a 3-tier web app. You would go into RightScale. In the web-based interface, we also have an API, by the way. And you would draw together a set of server templates. That's our language for a model of how a server should run. And you might choose, let's say you chose SQL 2012 database. We have a configuration already that creates an HA version of that database with a principal and a mirror and replication and backup and all that good stuff. And you might choose IIS as the web and application tier. So you would bring some server templates in for that. And just as an example, you might also choose, just to give an example, a Linux-based load balancing front end, let's say HA proxy. So you could gather all these things together and run them with a single click of a button, and all of those servers would then auto-configure themselves to run as a unified system. What's even more cool is that this system, when managed by RightScale, would support auto-scaling. That means as the load increases on this web property, we would automatically launch more app servers. And conversely, as the loads decreased, we would, in an orderly way, decommission servers from that app layer. So you got the full auto-scaling as well as all the other management goodness you'd expect from monitoring, alerting, user management, audit tracking, et cetera, et cetera. So why Azure? Well, what we're so excited about really boils down to three things. The first one is Microsoft clearly knows how to run global cloud-scale infrastructure with a very high degree of operational excellence. So this is a cloud that we can count on. It's a cloud that our customers can count on. Secondly, this integration of infrastructure as a service with platform as a service is really an industry first. And it provides an entire environment for the development and deployment of apps that we think is going to be very powerful because it handles everything from simple cases where you can plug into the PaaS all the way to much more complex systems, which we see great demand for using the infrastructure as a service component. And finally, it's the openness. It's a clear commitment to openness for Microsoft to support all the way down to the OS level Linux workloads as well as Windows workloads. And we think that's going to be crucial for creating universal appeal for this platform and driving a lot of adoption. So we're super excited about partnering with them as the interest grows even greater in Azure. If you'd like to be one of the first to try out RightScale's new support for Azure, along with this announcement today, we're announcing a private beta of that support in RightScale, and we'd love to have you come check it out. You can see it at www.rightscale.com/Azure, and we'd welcome your interest there. Just go there and sign up, and we'll get in contact with you. So with that, Scott, thanks very much. We're looking forward to partnering.
Thank you. So our virtual machine capabilities that we're introducing today are one of the great features of this Azure release. We got a number of other great features we're going to be walking throughout the rest of the day as well. The next one I want to talk a little bit about that we're really excited about is a feature we call websites. Basically, with websites on Windows Azure, we have a managed service that you can take advantage of that enables you to build websites using ASP.NET, Node.js, or PHP. Allows you to use any tool, any operating system in order to build them. And you can easily deploy these sites to Azure using the tools and infrastructure you already know. So we support, for example, FTP, we support Git, we support TFS, as well as web deploy. What's nice about this offering is not only that it allows you to very quickly get going, but it also allows you to start with a free-based offering that allows you to run these sites in a shared multi-tenant environment. And then you can scale up these sites to run on reserved instances and scale out as your sites and your business grows. So it provides a really attractive offering as well, and a lot of really compelling features. And I'd like to invite Bill Staples up here on stage to actually show it off in action.
It's great to be here today to show off some of the hard work we've been doing to make it super easy to build websites in the cloud. And Scott, you just demonstrated the undisputable power of being able to create VMs and have admin access to install and do whatever you want. This is sort of the opposite end of the cloud spectrum, if you will. In this scenario, I don't want to have to worry about the operating system or the VMs underneath it. I don't want to have to worry about the web server and installing all the frameworks and keeping it up to date. I just want to focus on my application code. And to demonstrate that, I'm going to create 3 different websites, each very differently, kind of a different scenario. You'll see kind of the broad spectrum of appeal with the Azure Website Service. To start with, I'll probably do a demo that you might expect from Microsoft, which is great integration, first-class support for .NET and Visual Studio. I'll do that here in the Windows Azure portal. Same kind of experience you saw earlier with creating a VM, but we're going to create a website instead and just give it a host name here. Let's do meet.net. And with just one click, the website's getting provisioned in this multi-tenant service. And in just a few seconds, we've got the website up and running. I can go ahead and click into it. You see, again, a consistent experience with what we saw earlier with the VM look and feel, but now we're looking at the website. Every website has a number of features with it. One of them is the ability to download a publishing profile. This contains all the connection information for this website so that tools can connect up to it without having to worry about servers to connect to, credentials, et cetera. So I've downloaded that, and let's pop open Visual Studio. I've got Visual Studio 2012 RC here. Let's go ahead and create a new project. ASP.NET MVC4 is great. Let's do meet.net. And I'm going to use an internet application template. Just makes it really easy. Visual Studio creates basically the project for me and an attractive-looking template for me to get started with. So we've got that up and going now. Let's go ahead and publish it. I can right-click on the project, say Publish, import that profile that we just downloaded from Azure. You see all the connection information is in there. And with one click, I can go ahead and publish. We'll pop up, open the output here. You'll see as it works. It basically builds my project and then uploads all the files up into the cloud, back-ended by that storage system that Scott was talking about earlier. It sets up all the permissions for me, basically does all the work right here from within Visual Studio. I mentioned I'm using Visual Studio 2012. I should also mention the same support is available in Visual Studio 2010 as well, if you have that. You can just download the Azure SDK for 2010. You'll get the same tools. And there we go. We've published to the cloud in just a few seconds. Now, you might want to know how easy is it to make incremental changes and republish. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to go ahead and change this string as a simple change, and we'll go ahead and right-click and republish. I have this option to do a preview, which basically differences my code here locally with what I've already published in the cloud, and it shows me exactly what's changed. And so when I click Publish, it just pushes that one file that changed up into the cloud, refreshes my browser for me, and here we go. Website is up and running with the new text. Thank you. So we've been running the website for a few seconds here. Let's go ahead and click on the Monitor tab. This is traffic I was rehearsing on later last night, but you'll see we get near real-time monitoring information for the website. So we can see how many requests we've accepted, the CPU, the network usage, and any errors. I can also instrument my website code and surface custom meters here. So I can track users, visitors, transactions in my application, and so forth. And it all gets surfaced right here inside the Azure portal. So that is what you can expect as a .NET user. Welcome to Windows Azure. Let's switch to the Mac now and show, maybe I'm using a Mac for development, and maybe I want to try using Node.js with Windows Azure. What would that experience look like? Of course, I could come into the portal here and create a new website just as easily as I did for the .NET demo. But I want to show off some of the command line support. On the Mac, I really appreciate having quick command line access. I can automate things pretty easily. So Scott showed off the Azure command earlier. It also works with websites. I can do, for example, Azure site create. And I want to use Git publishing support. So I'll do --Git here. It's going to actually prompt me for a name. If I don't, I can absolutely provide it as an argument on the command line. It's going to prompt me for one. So let's go ahead and do this meet Node.js. And it'll go ahead and look for the available locations and sites to make sure I don't over-provision on one. And then go ahead and automatically create a site for me. You'll see it's also initializing Git repository here in my local directory. and sets up a remote for me to my new Azure website so I can quickly publish using Git. Now, I've got to create a Node site. Let's just do a Hello Node app. I use Sublime, so let's do Server.js. And got a quick template in here for some quick coding. So you don't have to watch me type. I'll go ahead now and quit. And I can check that in. First commit. And now I can do git push Azure master. It's going to prompt me for the password that I set up for publishing. And with that, it'll go ahead, using the command line tools built into every Mac and Linux, use Git to push up to my Windows Azure website. There we go. I've actually installed Mongo support for the second half of this demo. So it's going to take a second and actually push up all those Mongo files as well. I'll go back in here to the portal and just show you that it's working. We've got our Meet Node site here. I can click into that, click into deployments, for example. And there we go. We see the first commit is in the process of deploying. As soon as that's finished, there we go. It's now active. I can browse to the site, and there we go. Hello, Windows Azure, up and running. You might want to see how fast is it to do an incremental deployment. Let's go ahead and do one of those. So I also wanted to show as part of this how easy it is to connect from your Windows Azure website to other services, including, for example, a Linux virtual machine that I may have stood up earlier and installed Mongo onto. So I'll come up in here and replace this hello world line of code with some code here to connect to the MongoDB that I set up earlier. I'll go ahead and save that. Check it in. And git push Azure master. Password again. Assuming I didn't type it right. Let's try that again. And come back. You'll see the portal automatically detects that I'm publishing a new repository, a new version in my repository. It goes ahead and picks that up. It's deploying that now. And again, just a few seconds later, we'll have our active deployment change to the adding Mongo support. We'll go ahead and click that, and there we go. There's our list of countries from the sample database. And just as before, I can click into Monitor, go ahead and see real-time monitoring information for the request I've taken. Works just the same way as .NET. So last, it's great to be able to write lots of code. I can use .NET, I can use Node, I can use PHP with Windows Azure websites. But sometimes it's nice to not have to write code. Maybe some of you build websites on the side for a small business, or you want to set up a quick blog. Wouldn't it be great to do that with Windows Azure? Well, what we've done is we've brought together the power and simplicity of Azure with the best of open source apps on the web. And I'm going to take a trip to France and see the Tour de France here in a couple of weeks. I was thinking it would be great to set up a blog for myself to kind of track my progress. Maybe I'll even insert some Google ads in there and make some money on the side. I don't know. Let's try and create a blog real quick without writing any code at all. If I do the Create from Template option here, I get some open source software you may be familiar with: Drupal, Joomla, WordPress, Embraco, .NET Nuke. I'm going to choose WordPress. I hear it's pretty popular. And let's call this the bike blog for Bill. WordPress uses MySQL. And we're excited to announce that we've worked with ClearDB to provide MySQL as a service in Azure. And we're including a free MySQL database with every Azure subscription. So go check out Windows Azure websites and try out the ClearDB offer as well. We'll automatically create the database for you. Just agree to ClearDB's terms of service and click OK. What Windows Azure does now is it goes off to WordPress.org, who we've also partnered with, along with all those other open source partners. It grabs their latest package, their latest distribution of WordPress. It pulls it down, It unpackages it for you. It sets up all the permissions. It initializes the MySQL database in ClearDB, sets up all that work for you. And here in about 30 seconds, we'll have WordPress up and running. There we go. So I can click into it, go ahead and launch the browser. And there we go, WordPress up and running in Windows Azure without writing any code at all. And just finish this before somebody else beats me to it and hijacks my blog. I think I got you. There we go. And if we launch the site now, there we go, Bill's Bike Blog in Azure. So that is how easy it is to use open source and Windows Azure websites together. Now that I've created 3 different sites, you might wonder, okay, those are pretty easy, pretty simple. They're all running in this free shared environment. How easy is it to scale? Let's say my bike blog takes off. I get lots of great photos up there of the Peloton, and everyone wants to see them. How can I scale? Well, inside the Windows Azure Websites service, there's a Scale tab you'll see here. And by default, the websites I've created run in this shared multi-tenant environment. I can slide up this counter, for example, and add more capacity to my website, just as easily as pulling that scale bar across. What that does is it starts up more processes in the multi-tenant environment to handle my website. Another option I have is to scale up and out. And that's this reserved instance mode. I can click on that, and what that does is actually spin up dedicated reserved virtual machines for me, where only my websites will be routed to on that virtual machine. And I can do that. I can pick a virtual machine size, small, medium, or large, with increased cores and virtual and memory available to me. And I can pick the number of virtual machines I want. This is cool because I don't have to worry again about setting up the virtual machines or the load balancer. Windows Azure Websites does it all for me. So I pick 2 instances, 2 reserved virtual machines spin up. All my websites get routed to those 2 virtual machines automatically. I don't have to do anything else. All I do is click Save. And there we go. That is the power of Windows Azure Websites. Again, we created 3 websites, a Node one, a .NET one, a PHP one, completely different ways, and scaled it out. We're pretty excited about this new service. It comes, right now, Windows Azure comes with 10 free websites to play around with. So encourage you to get out there and check it out. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thanks, Bill. So I think one of the things, a couple really compelling things that Bill showed off. One is just sort of the ease with which you can get things done in Azure. And hopefully you're starting to see this, and you'll see it even more kind of as the rest of the presentation goes on. We've really focused a lot on usability and really having the cloud work for you in a frictionless way. You saw the open source capabilities, whether it's different languages, different development operating systems, different frameworks that you can go ahead and use, as well as the applications that you can deploy as part of that. And then the other thing that I think is really compelling is showing off how you can kind of mix and match platform as a service features and infrastructure as a service features together. Being able to stand up your own custom Mongo instance in your own VM, whether it's Windows or Linux, customize it however you want, and then integrate it with a website, or you'll see later with a cloud service, and mix and match across those ways. It's kind of unique and differentiated, and allows you to have complete control over your overall environment. Other cool thing that he then showed at the end there, I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about because we think it's kind of unique, is this ability to kind of start in a shared, small, fast environment, and then scale up however you need based on the actual load, and only have to pay as your kind of site grows. And one of the cool things about the websites feature is that by default, you get 10 free shared websites. You can basically deploy just like Bill did within that environment. In that environment, your application is one of many. You can optionally scale up the number of processes or the number of instances running in that environment. So if you just have a little bit extra load, you can add 1 or 2 more processes. And then the great thing is you have the ability, if you want to move out of a shared environment into a dedicated environment, just to go into the Scale tab, pick a VM size, pick a number, and literally within about 30 to 45 seconds, your site is now running on reserved compute instances, completely isolated from any other customer within the system. And you can run it in 1 VM. You can scale it up to more VMs as your capacity grows or shrinks. And you can also, as kind of Bill demonstrated, build multiple websites and run dozens or even 100 of them within the same VM processes. In this case here, it's multi-tenant, but multi-tenant only for yourself. And so you're basically sharing those VMs across different solutions that you build. It gives you lots of flexibility. Because you only pay by the hour for compute with Windows Azure, you can scale up and scale down as needed based on your traffic, and provides a really compelling way to get started. So that's a little bit about, we talked about virtual machines, we talked about websites. I'm going to switch gears now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about cloud services. Cloud services is another model that we support for building applications. It allows you to build what we kind of call infinitely scalable apps and services, ones that can run on hundreds or even thousands of cores. They support not only web-based deployments, but also multi-tier-based architectures, where you might have a combination of front ends, middle tiers, as well as virtual machines running inside as part of your solution. And it supports automated application management. So it's really easy to deploy, scale out, isolate, and recover from any type of hardware failure, as well as do automated updates. And so to show that off, let's go ahead and switch back, and let's do another demo. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going back to this Windows machine that Bill was using earlier. And I'm going to pick off from where he left off with that ASP.NET MVC website that he was building as part of his first demo. So he's deployed this site now in our website option. What I'm going to do is show you how you can extend it even further with cloud services and make this application multi-tier. Meaning I'm going to have both the front end as well as a separate background service process that's running as part, or background service VM running as part of my solution that I want to run some background processes. And if I had time, I'd add queuing and probably integrate between the two. But for right now, all I'm going to do here is to enable that is just right-click on this project and say Add Windows Azure Cloud Service Project. This is going to add another project into my Visual Studio solution that allows me to kind of orchestrate all the different, what we call roles as part of my cloud service and deploy them as a kind of common unit. So you'll see here I have my Meet.NET role now wired up for my website. I'm going to go ahead now and right-click and say Add Worker Role. And I'm just going to create another role that I'm going to call Background Service that I can use to do kind of some background tasks that I'll be running as part of my solution. So this just has a little while statement. Obviously, I'd check a queue or something like that to make it more real. But for the purposes of this demo, just assume this is sort of another kind of tier within my application with some non-front-end code in it. What I can then do as part of my service solutions as a developer is I can choose to pull up properties about how I want these roles deployed. So I can say I want to default to 2 VMs that are small, and I can pick different VM sizes as part of this. I can set security privileges about which ports should be open. I'll just say 2 background services as well. And then what I can do is I can just hit F5 inside Visual Studio. That'll build and run this project. And it'll spin up also this Windows Azure Compute emulator, which will basically emulate what this multi-tier solution will look like running in the production cloud on Windows Azure. And so it gives me a way, without having to deploy anything, that I can do my development and my debugging locally and kind of simulate a runtime environment. And so you can see here, my front end is now running. If I click down here and bring up the emulator UI, you'll see that actually we're simulating not just the front end, but also the back end service when it's running. And I basically have kind of 4 VM debug SPUs, if you will, within this emulator that I can drill into and actually see what's going on within that role. So a pretty easy way for me as a developer to go ahead and build a multi-tier solution and kind of get my package all set up for deployment. Now when I go to deploy, all I need to do is go into Visual Studio and right-click on this role, or this project, and I just say Publish, just like we did with websites. And I basically just walk through another wizard, and Visual Studio will then upload this application into Azure and basically deploy this multi-tier solution across a number of virtual machines. So rather than watch you do that, I'm going to go to the slides and kind of walk through what will happen under the covers and some of the benefits that Windows Azure provides. So basically, when I go to kick off this deployment, and I can do it not only with Visual Studio, I could do it with Node, I could do it with PHP, I could do it with Python, Java, or any of the other languages that we support. I'm basically uploading effectively a zip file that contains a definition of what all these different roles look like to the cloud. And what Azure will then do is basically parse that file, look at the manifest for it, and use it to basically deploy VMs within the cloud for me automatically, stand them up with the operating system I want to use, deploy the app code within those VMs so that they're ready to run, and then basically bring them in rotation with a network load balancer. And this will install all the dependencies that I need. So if it'll set up my web server, it'll set up any of the security certificates I need. And as part of the load balancer, it'll also set up a secure firewall so that only my roles can talk to each other and amongst themselves. And once I do that, my app is live on the web. And literally, that little app we built, I could basically stand up 4 roles, 2 on my front end and 2 on the back end, and have them running. The other nice thing about this environment, in addition to kind of the fact that it's a kind of a fully automated deployment, is that we also monitor and watch the role health on your system. And so if at any point we detect that one of the VMs is bad or there's some code inside it that you've written is crashing, we'll automatically pull that VM out of rotation so it no longer is getting network requests, and we'll spin up a replacement for it elsewhere in the system and then route it back into the network load balancer. And the benefit here is you don't actually have to get paged. You don't have to actually go and manually write scripts in order to fix it. Instead, the system kind of takes care of it by yourself, and you just find out afterwards, oh, looks like one of my things crashed, and you can look at the logs to try to understand why and fix the code. So it gives you a lot of kind of management out of the box and makes your apps much more robust and manageable. Other big benefit here that we're shipping as part of this week's announcement, if we go to the demos now, is much richer administration support inside the Windows Azure portal for managing these cloud services. So I kind of showed the dev experience. What I want to do now a little bit is drill into what one of these cloud services looks like inside our management portal. And again, you have kind of a common view and a common way to manage these things, very similar to how we do with VMs and websites, but with a couple additional features. We have, just like you can do with websites, we have diagnostics. We also support the ability to do source controlled deployment with our new TFS Online product. This allows you not only to push content and app code, but also does builds and unit tests and can even do performance analysis on your app before you actually deploy it. We also have built-in monitoring support that's now surfaced through the Windows Azure portal. I can see a bunch of perfmon counters. You can also add new metrics that you want within it. We have a lot of new metrics that we're shipping this week that you can now surface. We're also allowing you to write code within your application to publish your own custom metrics, like orders per second or sessions per second that are specific to your app, and we'll automatically surface them through the portal as well as through the command line information. You can also then scale, you can drill into any of the instances that you've deployed. So here are the 4 VMs that we deployed as part of that application. And I can also click the Scale tab, and just like Bill showed with websites, I can now scale up or scale down my application. And what's compelling about cloud services is I can do that not only for at a macro level, but I can actually do it on a per role level within my app. So if I have a front end, I could say I want 40 instances of my front end, and if I want to use 352 instances on my back end, I could run the slider on that. All I have to do is hit save, and Windows Azure will take the already deployed package, spin up those extra roles, and deploy it across it. And that number is literally infinite. This particular subscription, just for safety's sake, only has 400. Otherwise, my credit card is going to get really slammed. But basically, you have that ability to kind of scale up or down at will. You can do it either through the portal or in an automated way. And when you go to deploy and update your solution, we also have built-in support as part of the cloud service model that makes it really easy. We have both what's called a production and staging environment. So if I want to spin up a mirror copy of my app and test it out privately, I can do that, and then basically flip the load balancer to the new deployed app with zero interruption of service and not have to worry about something breaking or going wrong. And if I do something wrong, I can always swap it back in a heartbeat and roll back to the previous version. So a lot of power, a lot of capabilities, works with all languages and services. So that's a little bit about cloud services. One of the things that hopefully you've seen, especially in the last couple demos here, is how we're kind of trying to enable you as developers to focus more on apps and not have to worry as much about infrastructure and plumbing. And you've seen this in a couple of different ways, whether it's with standing up VMs, whether it's with websites, whether it's with cloud services. We're really trying to provide the management tools and a lot of the built-in infrastructure so that things like reliably geo-replicating your backups, whether it's creating websites and deploying them using Git, or whether it's with cloud services scaling up or scaling down and handling node failures. We kind of just build that into the system, and that hopefully provides a lot of productivity and a lot of power and lets you build more robust solutions at the end of the day. One of the other things that we do with Windows Azure to enable that is provide a bunch of what we call application building blocks that you can take advantage of that are managed services that we run that provide a lot of compelling value that avoid you having to stand up and manage that infrastructure for yourself. You always can stand up your own VMs and put anything you want in it, but in a lot of cases you'll find that we have built-in services as part that we deliver, or as you'll learn about later, that partners deliver that you can just take advantage of directly within your applications. And what's cool is you can use any of these services in a VM, in a website, or in a cloud service. And so you have full flexibility in terms of how you consume them and how you take advantage of them. All these services are also available in multiple languages. So we now have, as part of our Develop Center, new dev centers for multiple different languages. I showed some of those earlier, whether it's .NET, Node, Java, PHP. We're excited today to be shipping our Python dev center and SDK for the first time that you can take advantage of as well. And for each of these, we basically have libraries that you can consume in those particular languages that basically call into the REST APIs that we expose from these particular services. You can also call the REST APIs directly. And we basically have all these libraries hosted on GitHub under an Apache 2 license. And so you can both see the source, you can also contribute back to the source and take advantage of it. What I want to do here is just walk through a couple of quick of the services that we're providing. In particular, highlight some of the new things that we're shipping today that you can take advantage of. And the first one I'm going to talk about a little bit is our SQL database support. This is a feature that we've had actually for a while, and it provides a relational SQL Server engine in the cloud. What does that mean? Well, we basically run the SQL databases for you. We do all of the clustering and availability work for you, so you don't have to worry about standing up your own clustered environment. We do backups, and we tune the databases for you. So it's a fully managed service. We also apply security patches and patch the systems, so you don't have to worry about that, and then we'll basically do it for you automatically. We're also this week shipping for the first time our SQL reporting services feature as part of this, so that you can also now do rich reporting and business intelligence on top of data you store within it. What's nice about it is just how easy it is to create one of these things. And so I'm just going to switch back into the portal now and just kind of highlight how to create a new database within Windows Azure and stand one up. And so all I need to do is just say new SQL database, hit quick create. I can call it the Meet in SFDB. I can say new database. Go ahead and specify a password. And hit create. And what this is going to do now is basically stand up a new database server for me, provide me a database that I can use. And what you'll see, it only takes a couple seconds. I now have a clustered database with high availability that I can basically program against and take advantage of. And the pricing starts at $5 a month for a 100 meg account. And then basically, depending on how much data you store, it scales appropriately. And if I want to scale up more storage, I can just go ahead, say I want a 150 gig database, hit save. And again, within seconds, it'll go ahead and deploy that database for me and make it available for me to use. So it's lightning fast in order to create. And the beauty here is you can call this from any type of app, whether it's from a VM, whether it's a Windows or Linux VM, using any language. You can stand it up and use it from a website, or you can stand it up and use it from within a cloud service. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of power you can take advantage of. We have a great storage system, and you saw this in place as part of our virtual machine offering, where we use it to mount drives. We also provide blob storage on top of it. This is a highly available, scalable, kind of secure file system in the cloud. You can store any kind of data you want within it, and you can optionally, as part of our storage system, expose it as HTTP URLs and make it public, or you can lock it down and have it be private. And the benefit here is this is again just a feature you can take advantage of. I could go back into the portal, say new storage account, and stand one up. And one of these great features we have is this kind of continuous geo-replication support, so that we basically guarantee within 15 minutes your data at the time that you write it is stored in another data center at least 400 miles away that you can use in the event of a disaster. One of the cool things that's also being introduced this week as part of our storage system is a new kind of storage view within our admin portal. This basically gives you, just like you saw with VMs and cloud services and websites, the ability to see how your storage system is being used. You get real-time data, not only about HTTP requests in and access to and from the data and how much is being stored. One of the cool things I really like about this release is we're now surfacing your SLA availability directly within the portal. And so you can actually see whether you've had any availability issues over the last 24 hours or forever. This view is 24 hours. And actually see in real time, is your SLA being met? And our SLA for storage not only includes availability, we also measure latency. And so if we're ever slow on the storage system, we count that as an availability issue, and that goes against your SLA. So a lot of great new features provided as part of that. We're also today offering a new distributed cache feature as part of Windows Azure that we're pretty excited about. It's a low latency in-memory distributed cache that you can stand up as part of your application. It's elastic, meaning it can dynamically grow or shrink at will. You can do it based on how your application is doing, so you can increase or decrease capacity. And what's nice is that you don't have to modify any application code or redeploy your application in order to increase or decrease the cache size. Instead, you just go in the portal and you can say, I want 4 more roles, and we'll dynamically spin it up for you. It also provides high availability support. So you can indicate when you cache something that you want to pin the data on at least 2 cache servers, so that in the event of one having a hardware failure, you don't lose any data. And we basically provide this service that you can use again from any language. One of the things that's also new this week that we're doing is implementing the memcached protocol on top of our distributed cache. And what that means is if you already have existing code written against memcached in whatever language that you use, you can basically point it at our distributed cache, and it will just work. No code changes required. So what I'll do is just quickly demo how to enable a distributed cache in action and use it within an app. So we're going to run a app here called Twitter Reader, and it's running as a cloud service. And so we'll spin up the emulator here. And basically allows me to enter in a Twitter handle, and then it's going to go off to Twitter and download a whole bunch of tweets. And so Twitter is very busy today, it looks like, or at least the Windows Azure subscription is. And so it took about 4.6 seconds in order to download that. And that works, but one of the downsides, if I'm doing that on every request, I'm obviously going to have a pretty big hit on my server if I'm requesting it on the server. And so what I like to do ideally is cache these tweets on a per handle basis, have some kind of reasonable expiration policy, and make sure that if I have a scaled out server environment where I have multiple front ends and multiple worker roles, that if one of them caches it, the other ones have access to that data as well. And so to do that, I'm going to enable the distributed cache within Windows Azure. Enabling it is now really easy. All I need to do, I can enable it in what we call a co-located environment, where we actually run the cache on VMs you already have, or you can run the cache within dedicated VMs that we stand up for you. And so you have the flexibility of using machines you've already paid for and just taking advantage of some of the unused memory within them, or you can have a fully isolated cache with just the cache running inside that VM. And in this case here, I want to use some memory I have on this web server. So all I need to do is pull up the properties for this project. I can click Enable Caching. I can choose how much memory I want to use on my web roles to dedicate to the distributed cache. I'm just going to use the default, and hit Save. Then within my app code, I want to basically be able to access that cache, and to do that, I'm going to click the Manage NuGet Package References and install what we call a NuGet package, which is our .NET Package Manager, which is just going to install some libraries for me and update a config file within the app. And then all I need to do is go into my config file, and I just need to point this app at its cache server. And so in this case here, I'm going to call this Twitter Reader, which is the name of my role. And I'm going to enable the local cache option to make it even faster. And then last but not least, I just need to go ahead and update my code in order to use the cache. And so this is the MVC or controller that's retrieving the tweets. Right now, it's always hitting Twitter to retrieve those tweets. I'm going to instead use a snippet. And basically, all I'm going to do here is initialize the cache. I check to see whether or not we've already cached tweets for that particular handle. If I have, then I just return it. Otherwise, I retrieve the tweets and add it into the cache with an expiration. And now I can rerun my application. Now we're going to restart this emulator as part of doing this, and it's going to launch the distributed cache as part of this web role. Now again, if I had multiple web roles, it would actually allocate a percentage of each web role to be part of the distributed cache. There it is running now. I can hit this, and I should find, it's still going to take a while because this is the first couple requests, and you'll see basically on subsequent requests, the distributed cache is kicking in, and now basically I'm able to retrieve that Twitter feed in under half a millisecond, regardless of whether or not this was the front end that retrieved it or whether it was another front end within the application. It's shared across the entire application. I'm able to use it. And the beauty is, because I'm using this co-located option, this is free. It doesn't cost any money. I can enable it within any VM within my cloud service and take advantage of it. So let's go back to the slides. So this option I showed here, again, it's pretty cool. Basically, if I spin up my server and I have 4 web roles, if I say use 300 megabytes on each role, as soon as they boot up within Windows Azure, we'll what's called ring join this cache together, and we'll basically create a uniform 1.2 gigabyte distributed cache. And that way, any of these roles, if they save that Twitter data, regardless of whether the data is stored locally within its own cache or in another system, it'll have access to it and can retrieve it in under a millisecond. So it's really fast. As you spin up more roles inside your application using the management console I showed earlier, we'll automatically just keep adding more roles and caches, and your cache can grow or shrink on demand. You can also go into your project, and I could say, hey, I want to have a dedicated worker role that's just running the cache. That's really easy to enable as well, and this way you basically aren't using any of your web server memory. Instead, you're just using this mid-tier to store it. Again, you can choose the cache size you want. And the great thing is you can scale up or scale down capacity as needed, and we'll automatically add and remove the cache for you. And if we ever know that a machine is going down, for example, you say, I want to remove it from the session, we'll actually spend a minute moving all of the data onto other nodes if there's memory available before we actually take down that VM. So you don't actually lose data even in a graceful shutdown situation. And again, you can access this from any language, including using Memcached APIs against it. You don't have to change any code. A couple other quick services just to highlight that we also have and we're announcing today. One is a new identity service that enables you to very easily integrate your applications running in the cloud with enterprise identity. Either your own enterprise, or if you're building applications for others, you can integrate with their identity systems that they have running inside the firewall. And so specifically, you can integrate with anyone using Active Directory within their enterprise. And about 93% of Fortune 1000 companies use Active Directory. And once you use our identity service, you can integrate single sign-on using corporate credentials in your SaaS-based application or in the solution that you're delivering. You can also take advantage of a new enterprise graph API that we're shipping today that allows you to send a REST call to our identity server, retrieve back JSON payloads, and allow you to basically query and work with the identity information that enterprise has chosen to publish with you. Think of this kind of like a Facebook Graph API, except for the enterprise. It's great if you want to integrate, sell to enterprise customers, and you want to be able to integrate with the security models and the security permissions they already have. We also have a bunch of new Service Bus capabilities that are shipping this week. Service Bus is a managed service that we provide that delivers secure messaging and relay capabilities. It's great for integrating cloud-based solutions with on-premise environments in a very secure way, and enables a very loosely coupled architecture. You'll see as part of the SDK release this week, we have much better tooling support inside Visual Studio. We're also, for the first time, introducing cross-platform libraries so that you can use the Service Bus from any OS, whether it's a VM, website, or cloud service, in any of the languages that we support. We're also this week shipping for the first time our media service on Azure. And Azure Media Services provides a managed service that allows you to create, manage, and distribute media. You can target any device or media format. So you can do Silverlight, Flash, HTML5, iOS, HLS, Android, you name it. You basically are able, with a standard set of REST calls, you can upload media to us, tell us what you want to encode and what format you want to encode it in, whether you want to optionally DRM protect it, and then you can set up an origin server and we'll have it automatically streamed to those devices and we'll provide full analytics on top of it. Really compelling way to use media. These are just a sort of small sampling of some of the new services that and updates that we're doing this week. We have lots more services out there that are provided as part of Windows Azure that you can use and take advantage of. And you're going to see this list growing steadily in the months and years ahead. In addition to services that we provide, we also have a marketplace that allows other partners to expose solutions that you can use as a service as well within Azure. You saw an example of one of these earlier in Bill Staples' talk, where he was showing MySQL as a service, which is provided by a partner of ours, ClearDB. We have a lot of other services and providers that are standing up great solutions on top of Azure this week as well. Tengen is announcing a MongoDB service. Lucid Imagination is announcing a Solar service. Cloudant is announcing a CouchDB service. SendGrid is providing email. Our partners with AppFog are providing a great PaaS solution that allows you to build apps that work not only on Azure, but also on other cloud providers. And we have great solutions coming from Joyent, Agria, CloudShare, and hopefully some of you in the room over the next couple months. And we're really looking forward to kind of partnering as part of this ecosystem and allow you to kind of provide service to customers in a really easy way. We're doing this week, in addition to releasing a lot of features, is also providing Azure in a lot more countries and territories. As of today, as of this month, we're offering Azure within 89 countries and territories, and we're opening up to more than 40 more new ones as part of this week's announcement. And so that allows you to use Azure pretty much from anywhere and be able to take advantage of it to build your solutions. So I've talked a lot about the capabilities of Azure, a lot about what's new this week. I want to spend a little bit of time now, as we're wrapping up, and talk about some of the success that people have had on top of Windows Azure already, even before these new features have come out, and some of the benefits that Azure brings. And one great example of a site that has sort of extreme load and had a lot of success on Azure is Pottermore. And I'd like to invite Julian Thomas up here on stage, who's the CTO of Pottermore, to talk about what they've done with us.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks. Brilliant, thank you. That's some fascinating stuff, and as you hear from me, you'll see I'll be looking up a lot of that new technology. Perhaps we won't be using WordPress, but I think a lot of the other stuff will be really useful. So I'm really here to tee up a session we're doing a little bit later on, that's a story about how we moved our application onto Windows Azure in about 3 months. We'd hit a significant scale challenge at Pottermore, and by working with Microsoft and using Windows Azure, we were able to move Pottermore to the cloud and solve those problems. So what is Pottermore? I'm guessing a few of you in the room have seen a Harry Potter movie. Probably some of you have read a book, and some others might have been given a lunchbox or something. I mean, Harry Potter's been everywhere for the last 15 years, since J.K. Rowling first published the first story in 1997. So what is Pottermore? So Pottermore is Harry Potter for the digital age. It's where we retell the stories in a digital space for a new audience and the existing audience. It's a unique online experience from J.K. Rowling, and it's built around the 7 Harry Potter books. It's got a couple of components, really. It's content, and there's a lot of unique stories from a new writing from J.K. Rowling. When she wrote the books, J.K. Rowling imagined a world, a very rich world that the whole of our world resonated with, our Muggle world. And the story is really only a narrow path through that world. And J.K. Rowling has a lot of other content, a lot of other thinking about that world, and that's going to be shared on Pottermore. I guess the more, if you like, in Pottermore. It's also social, and so you can make friends with Harry Potter fans across the world and share user-generated content on there, so both commenting and also sort of images that people may create. And it's also got some really rich interactive features, so such as wizards dueling or brewing potions. So a little bit later on, myself and David Aitken from the Windows Azure team are going to share quite a detailed story with you about how we moved our application to Windows Azure in 3 months, literally starting this year and going live in April. And how, within a few days after go live, a go live that was launched with a single tweet, we were delivering 110 million page impressions a day. So some pretty significant scale, and we did that all on Windows Azure. So I'm going to hand back to Scott. It's an interesting story. I hope you can join us to hear it a bit later on. Thanks Scott. Okay.
It's great to see that type of load of 110 million page views per day, and kind of how you can build it on Azure and really scale up to really huge success. So hopefully you've seen over the last kind of hour and a half a lot about Windows Azure and some of the new things that we're providing as part of the release this week. You've seen a lot of different scenarios, and kind of we walked through a number of the different features. Hopefully what you're seeing here, kind of as I started the presentation, coming back to a couple of these core themes, is some of the flexibility it provides, the fact that you can use the best of IaaS and VM hosting and the best of platform as a service together, the fact that you can use the best of the Microsoft ecosystem and the best of the open source ecosystem together. You can use the tools that you already know, regardless of what those tools are, in whatever database or operating system or development framework you're using. And it's provided in a really kind of compelling way and delivered with very solid results that you can bet your business on. And we're kind of really excited to launch today the preview as well as the final availability of the features that I talked about. All of the features that I've demoed and we've discussed this morning or this afternoon, you'll see live in preview form over the next couple of hours. You can go to the windowsazure.com website to sign up for them. If you've already got a Windows Azure account, if you go to the Accounts tab and click the Preview tab, you can enable and opt in to any of the previews like virtual machines and websites that we've been discussing here today. And we're really looking forward to having the opportunity to work with you more in the months and years ahead with Windows Azure. We hope you give it a shot, and we're looking forward to seeing what many of you will build with it. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of the day.